And all right, if everybody could mute your mic if you haven't already done that. Tonight have you ever wondered how to work the amateur satellites with your HT? Well, tonight, Clint Bradford, K6LCS, will explain how you can do that. You don't need a 100-watt transmitter for it. You don't need expensive antennas. He'll get us all up to date. He'll tell us that he has a website, and you can go to that for up to the minute information. And the other thing he's going to tell you that most everybody here has all the equipment that you need to work the birds. So his presentation will walk you through the steps needed to successfully work several amateur satellites. Clint's been a hemp since 1994 and found his niche in the hobby, working satellites with minimal equipment and telling people all about it. I think he has talked to our club at least twice. We had a dinner out in the parking lot. We all went out there, interrupted our dinner, and we worked one of the birds. So he has done great jobs explaining this to us. So he's also serves as a liaison between NASA and the amateur radio on the International Space Station. He's worked with the schools and coordinated the communications with the International Space Station and the students.
I did all that.
He might just give us an update as to what's going on up there. And once again, for reference material, Clint has created a support website for all of us to use. The web has become a one-stop source for all citations, equipment, recommendations, software, suggestions in the presentation. Professionally, Clint was a sales manager for ADI, Premier Communications, Prime. He worked for Motorola for a couple of years and also ham radio outlet. So please welcome Clint Bradford. It's all yours, Clint.
My goodness, what an introduction. Thank you very much. I think it was there 9 or 11 years ago that we last saw each other, and then we were at the a couple of ham conventions. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for asking me back. Let's see if I can share this screen successfully or not. We're going to, oh, very important, share my audio. Yes. And yeah, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. Everybody have a full screen slideshow of a test pattern now?
Yeah. We got the test pattern.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you, Philip. Conejo Valley, thank you very much. Naval RL special group. We're going to talk about working amateur satellites with your handheld radio. But before we begin, we're all Zooming. I want you to know that Brad has organized and gotten us all munchies, all food to eat this evening. Keith already found out. Zoomers, just turn around, go out the door, down the hallway. Anything that's in that refrigerator, you are welcome to eat, courtesy of W6VO. What a nice guy. And Norm, if you need a restroom, you go down the other way in the hallway and you'll find the restrooms. So Norm, thank you very much for the little housekeeping stuff there. We appreciate it. And this is just glorious. This is a keeper, folks. This is going on my wall. We did find out who is responsible for this wonderful piece of art?
I think it was Ron's wife, if I heard correctly.
Is Ron here this evening?
Don't think I saw him.
Okay.
Well, oh, yeah. Is it K6 CPR, Ron?
Yeah, it was his wife. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay. That's just wonderful. I'm not that patient at all. And you can tell by the serrations. Oh, there, Ron, thank you. So you can tell by the serrations, they're not perfect. This was not a machine. This was, somebody took the time. That's just glorious. That's just wonderful. I think you can tell, folks, by meeting me 10 years ago, by this Hawaiian shirt and having a watermelon in the first 5 slides, that we're going to try and have some fun this evening, as well as maybe throw a couple facts in here too. Everybody check out your Ventura County Star this morning. Online? Norm? No? Okay, there it is. Ham satellite, CVARC this evening, 7 o'clock. We were, though, all watching this last March, weren't we? Space aficionados, the Perseverance rover, that first shot. We all went to bed, and the second shot came down from the rover. It was just phenomenal. Brad likes it. Sorry, okay. Then the color photos, the high-res color photos started coming down to us. Just phenomenal high-res images. And then on April 1st, the first major discovery by Perseverance, it let us know where all those lost socks are from the dryer. They're all up there on that planet. All right. Sorry, Philip, but Brad gave me the mic for 3 hours. You're stuck with this. A couple months later, just a couple months ago, you all heard about the ISS, and they replaced a segment of antenna cable that just blew away our 2-meter 440 Kenwood machine. And we thought it was going to take 6 or 7 months for them to put it back together. The defective cable is for a future client. It has 5 more ports on it, but that commercial client isn't up there yet. So they just went back, and there is the piece of cable. It's not from HRO Anaheim, but they got a piece of cable, and within 2 weeks, they got that back, and our Kenwood is now working again. Just a month ago, did you hear about this? The Russian cargo ship that docked to the ISS, but then its thrusters came on very, very unexpectedly. This was not the 70 or 90 degree turn. This turned the space station more than 2 revolutions off its axis. They were literally fighting each other, battling in the control centers it was thruster battles. So the only thing I want you to write down this evening is there's the Russian module, and there it is. When NASA turned their feed off and went to this on live, something was going on. But go to this site if you want to hear the live audio of NASA talking to Russia. tinyurl.com/parking-job. How cool, calm, collected. They were not using the word nominal that afternoon. That was just phenomenal. A couple pictures that just really thrill me. This is the Endeavour on her last mission, a shot from the ISS as it was coming towards the ISS. And then who knows what telescope that is? Philip knows. What telescope is that? Down under. Apollo 11. This is the Parkes radio telescope that gave us those grainy TV images of the Apollo 11 mission. But look at that streak of light right underneath the focus cabin. That's the Endeavour. That's the shuttle Endeavour. But it gets better. Look to the right. Look to the right. See that other streak of light? That's the ISS. They're 3 minutes apart. They just separated. So right now, it's bringing goosebumps to my arm. We don't have a shuttle program any longer, and this is a historic shot. Thank you very much to John Sarkisian of Parkes Observatory for letting me use that and hand that out at my shows. Let's go the proper way, Clint. If you want to know where our equipment is on board, I show this to my wife every once in a while to let her know it really isn't that much of a rat's nest there behind my table. But there in the circle in the upper left is our Kenwood 2-meter 440 transceiver. And how they keep all that stuff straight up there, I'm not quite sure. A couple years ago at Ham Radio Outlet here in Anaheim, we did a little ham jam. This is my little fun Arrow antenna. Arrow antenna is a commercial antenna, crossband Yagi. Out the left there, you see a little cue card letting people know what we're working. We were working AO91 back then. And in the background, because it is best if we work these FM satellites in true full duplex mode, defined as being able to hear the downlink as you key your mic. Because we're doing that with simplex radios, I had a gentleman about 20 feet away with another setup. That's the ELK log periodic. There's only one recently manufactured HT that does true full duplex really well in 2-meter 440 and 442, the crossband 2-meter 440 aspects. And that was the Kenwood THD 72, but we lost that one. So use your nice radio you have now as a receiver and get a lesser expensive radio to transmit. That's just my ego. There we are at a Yuri's Night celebration every April 14th. showing off a little a little addition there of the ergonomic handle on the arrow. We'll talk about that later. A couple of you know me when I was at HRO, and the story behind this is my wife bought me a Dremel tool for my birthday, and I had to start cutting up something. So a couple biennios in there, watt meter, yeah, and a handle built in. I never look at Igloo or Playmate coolers the same way anymore. Any engineers? Any engineers in the room? Philip, are you an engineer? Kind of. I take my egg beater to shows, and I'll put it up on a rotator and call it my souffle antenna. Okay, one smile. Okay. Egg beaters are wonderful conversation pieces, but boy, working the FM satellites, my $15 tape measure beam will outperform my $363 M squared egg beater any day of the week. My QSO card. This is at the Los Angeles County Fair. Here we are working an FM satellite, a good pass, about 50-degree elevation pass, and we work 3 countries with 2 watts. Countries, not cities, not counties. We work Mexico, the US, and Vancouver, British Columbia, 2 watts. It can be done. It can be done. Here's our first trivia question of the evening. When did your club become a special service club of the ARRL? Anybody remember? Anybody got an answer? You've been supporting the ARRL for a long time.
It's been about 20 years.
No, since 1970, 51 years.
Oh.
Thank you very much for that. That's phenomenal. Anybody, well, show of hands, who is an ARRL member? That's everybody. Who is not quite yet an ARRL member? Well, 3 of you. And who just refuses to raise their hands at Zoom meetings? Okay, there you go, there you go. For those of you who are not ARRL members, please ask any of your club member, your fellow club members. They are our largest lobbying body for our interests in the country. You get a monthly magazine, you get a new email address to forward, your call sign at ARRL.net. Anybody using the equipment insurance plan from the ARRL? Is the club using the ARRL insurance plan? I've been with State Farm for more than 40 years. And in California, your mobile rig usually is not automatically covered by auto insurance. It might be under homeowners, but the computer I'm using tonight, my screens, my mobile rigs, my HTs is covered by ARRL for a much better premium than State Farm could offer me. It's $50 deductible per occurrence, per loss, current day replacement cost, and the premium is $1.25 or I think it's $1.25 per $100 evaluation. So go to ARRL Insurance. It'll cover your repeater in your backyard. It might not cover the repeater on the hill, but your repeater equipment, check out arrlinsurance.com. Get that premium quotation and take it to your agent, see if he or she can meet it or beat it. I volunteer for 3 organizations that I'm proud of. AMSAT was founded in 1969 as a nonprofit. Our mission is to build satellites and to disseminate information about them to the planet. We are international in scope with chapters, 35 chapters across the world. And we are a 501c3, and the accountant in the room will let you know what that means. ARISS, ARISS. Not only is ARISS responsible for getting amateur gear on board the ISS for us, but they also coordinate those wonderful student contacts with a flying astronaut, with an orbiting astronaut. So ARISS.org, ARISS.org. Part 1 of a 10-part communications equipment program was implemented and christened last December. That was the new Kenwood TM710D something, 2-meter 440 transceiver. We're going to have our own Raspberry Pi on there for us to use. There's 2 others right now being used by European, mostly European kids, but students. But there's a 10-part communications equipment program coming up. Watch ariss.org. And of course, ARRL. So they're all beginning with all the AAAs, ARRL, AMSAT, and ARISS. Please visit them often. Who is dabbling with Raspberry Pis? Anybody play with the Raspberry Pis? There are 2 of these on board, Philip, exactly like this one with the Sense hat. I don't have this $3,000 case that was mandated by the space agencies involved, but there are 2 Raspberry Pis on board right now that mostly European students, middle school and high school students, compete in nationwide competition to get their programs up on the ISS. I mean, there's Tim Peake of the European Space Agency. Here is a middle school student's project measuring defoliation in Africa. I said middle school student. Can you imagine this young woman's first job interview? Uh, yes, I've written some code. It's aboard the International Space Station right now. Would you like to see information on defoliation? And oh my God, middle school students. There they are. There's Tim Peake. There's kids getting their, there's students getting their participation certificates. Coming this year, 2 new Pis are being set up there. One with this very, very high res camera and some updated, it's still going to be a 3B, I believe. It might be a 4, I'm not sure yet, but 2 new Pis are being set up to the ISS. So watch astropie.org, astropie.org. And I know most of you have, but who's gone outside early dawn or after sunset and seen the ISS streak across the sky with your naked eye? As recently as the last 2 nights, I never fail to be in awe. Well, I was at my Best Buy store one night here in Rancho Cucamonga, and I just started grabbing people in the parking lot. I mean, I couldn't speak this young man's language, but as soon as I said International Space Station, there they all are trying to grab images of it. And you know, some folks think that for simplex work, this is the ultimate in FM voice contacts.
NA1SS, Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra.
Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra. This is NA1SS to Alpha, DX.
Commander Weissman, thank you very much for what you're doing for amateur radio this weekend, K6LCS.
If that looks like me 20 pounds ago, but with a $15 tape measure beam, a Yaesu FT60 turned down to 2 watts, talking to Commander Weissman, who was 465 miles downrange when we started. That's because it is. These are, just think of these as the ultimate line of sight experiment. Why 2 watts? What's our maximum for amateur radio? Use the least amount of power as required. And I knew there was 7 or 8 dB gain in that $15 antenna, and I knew where he's going to be. This was field day a few years ago when Commander Weissman, about 3 orbits, he was able to talk to hams on Earth. So I was also fortunate enough to coordinate and orchestrate one of those ARISS projects. 15 students asking their questions of flight engineer Don Pettit, and we got ourselves on the front page color photo above the fold in California's 6th largest daily newspaper. Okay, what am I supposed to be doing tonight, Brad? Oh, working ham satellites with your handheld radio. Okay, let's get back to that. Brad told you all about me. I'm really cool. My website's there for you, worksat.com. There's even a phone number on it if you want to call and if you need anything. I get those phone calls about 7 o'clock in the evening. Our dog Freya, you betcha, with those ears, you know we go out and do 1.2 every once in a while in the backyard, Brad. Any dog aficionados? Freya's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much for what you have done promoting this evening. We have 40 some odd folks here. Thank you very much for being here and putting up with all this. And all those preparatory slides, you're going to be able to answer these questions really easily. You need a minimum of 100 watts. You need that expensive Yaesu rotator, and multiple Yagis are grounds for divorce in California. Do you need all that equipment, folks, to do this all together now? No. Norm, thank you. But Clint, it's an expensive proposition. Absolutely not. Most of you already have the equipment you need to work amateur radio satellites. There's the iconic ICOM W32A. A friend of mine, Alan in Texas, has more than 10,000 contacts using an improved duct and an HT. We do not recommend you doing that. You can certainly hear and monitor the 2-meter downlinks from the ISS, whether it be slow scan TV or the downlink for the downlink for SSTV. Definitely hearable with a better duct, but you need more gain, more directionality to be successful working through these crossband repeaters in the sky. Sir Francis Bacon wrote "Knowledge is Power" in 1597. My mom, I think, dated this guy. All right, we started right on time, but can anybody tell me what time it is right now, please?
$7:35.
Can anybody tell me what time it is right now, please? Anybody?
I think you're looking for trivia time.
It is, my God, you're right. How did you know that? It is trivia time. Oscar is an acronym, Conejo. What does Oscar stand for? Somebody unmute themselves and tell us what Oscar.
Orbiting satellite carrying amateur radio.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's not that. It is indeed. And there is Oscar 1, orbital satellite carrying amateur radio. There's Oscar 1 built right near you in Central California. If that looks like aluminum and some rivets, that's because it is. High-tech componentry. You don't need to mention your age, but did anybody actually hear this satellite as it went around the Earth a few times? It just emitted Morse code for us. It was wildly successful in doing that. Okay, no one's going to admit they were around in 63. In 1961, $63 is what that cost in parts. Remember that dollar amount as we talk about today. I apologize for this slide. Much too many words on here, but just to let you know, Oscar 1 was the US's first amateur radio satellite. Oscar 2 failed. Oscar 3, our first one with a transponder. There have been more than 110 Oscars. Russia's always been involved, and there's always been amateur radio on the shuttles and the space station. They don't. We're not a toy on the space station. They actually used our system while they were doing routine maintenance on their primary system a few years ago. Almost all of the astronauts are amateur radio operators, and they enjoy it. When they have time, we just want them to get some more time on the simplex 2-meter frequencies for us. The satellites we can work are the low Earth orbiting satellites, about 250 miles, 200 to 300 miles above us, with 2-hour orbits. A few words, a few terms you'll run into working the satellites. Orbit is simply the path of a satellite around the Earth. Doppler, there is a Doppler accommodation you must make on the 440 side of life on a 2-meter 440 crossband repeater satellite. Brad, did you ask everybody to bring their slide rules? Get your slide rules out as we talk about Doppler. Let's say that satellite is transmitting on 435, 300. Acquire it slightly above. So program or use your VFO and program 305 and 310 and acquire it above, work it towards the center. And as you lose the signal, as loss of signal, it'll be slightly below the center frequency. If you're transmitting on 440, you have to accommodate also for Doppler. And here is why. With your slide rules, forget it. I've done it for you. On 2 meters on a 45-degree elevation, a good pass of an amateur satellite, look at that, only plus or minus 3 kilohertz deviation on 2 meters. No big deal, don't worry about it. But look at them, 440, a whopping positive, negative 10, 20 kilohertz deviation on the 440 side. So whether transmitting or receiving on the 440 side, the frequency charts on my side and the AMSAT will show you how to accommodate for Doppler on those. LEO is low Earth orbiting. So if LEO is low, then HEO must be high, yes indeed, and GEO are geosynchronous satellites. We don't have a geosynchronous satellite over North and Central America right now. There is one over the Atlantic and that away to the east of us. And if you had asked AMSAT 20 years ago, will we have a geosynchronous satellite? It won't be 2-meter 440, it'll be probably 5 and 10 gig. And we probably would have said, no, it's much too expensive. It needs to be maneuverable up there. We can't let it hit your ESPN coverage of Super Bowl in February. And it's just too expensive of a proposition. But we've got a ham radio operator who is a SpaceX board member. That might be a launch opportunity for us. It's going to happen, folks. This is nothing official at all. This is not a pronouncement. But I believe in the next 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to see news about. Now, imagine having that for you to work, the earthquake emergency, the flood emergency, the fire emergency, and then we can chit chat during the week. But for you to have a geosynchronous 24/7 satellite above you for emergency work, it's going to be phenomenal. We have a question. Please go with the question. The Molniya orbit. Molniya orbit is an elliptical orbit as exhibited here by AO40. And it's going the same direction as the Earth is rotating. And when it gets over the Earth, it just hangs there for a long period of time, wherever it's over. Molniya is a Russian, it's a Russian gentleman. And that's one of the 2 questions that you'll be asked at your Christmas party. Now you'll know the trivia question answers. What is the elliptical orbit called? It's called a Molniya orbit, MOLNIYA. We already talked about that. Uplink is your transmitted signal to a satellite. Downlink is a signal from it. Footprint is simply the circular or oval area on Earth that you should be line of sight to a satellite. The programs we'll talk about, the satellite programs we'll talk about later, are really traditionally kind of conservative with that footprint. We'll talk about that later. And you're probably wondering why. You're probably wondering why. Why play with these 10 or 15-minute passes? They're never going to coincide with your emergency, so they're not for 911 use, or they should be in no one's emergency communications plan. Why even mess with this? You've got your repeater networks. Brad is dabbling in most of the digital modes. We've got Yaesu System Fusion popular up there. This is just another aspect of this magnificent hobby that any of us can do. Technician license, it's 2 meter 440. A technician license gets you into the world of amateur radio satellites. It's just another hat we can wear. There's nothing more exciting to me. We can't do it quite yet down here in Riverside County, but getting to a public park, getting a tape measure beam out and either talking to a terrestrial station or pointing it upwards and talking to the ISS, and have families come over who know nothing about amateur radio or what's going on. I will always, of course, you will have your Conejo Valley brochure with you in your back pocket, but let them know what's going on with amateur radio, what you're doing in the community, and you don't need words from me on how to survive. You've been doing a lot in your community for a long time. Let's flash forward from that 1963 bird to AO51. AO51 was the most marvelous educational marketing satellite. It was just so easy to work. It was just a phenomenal 2 meter 440 satellite. Cost a little bit more in 2004. There it is, just a small cube. There we are in the front left, very front, just the left of the P. That's our satellite. There are 3 CubeSats on there, CubeSat configurations, but we're the only amateur satellite on that payload. We had 4 VHF receivers, 2 UHF. We had 56 channels of telemetry. Put it in different modes during the week. Have a 1.2 gig uplink on Sunday. It was just so marvelously easy to hear and work and educate and teach. And we've been trying to duplicate the wonderment of AO51 since, so we haven't quite matched it. AO51 did pass away, so its end of life was 7 or 8 years ago. The satellites we can work, these FM satellites, are sun synchronous, which means the passes will be going north to south or south to north, always hitting the poles, always getting hit by sun to energize through their solar panels. So you'll get to a point where you won't take your software out with you or your pass data. You'll just know whether it's going to be north to south or south to north, whether it's going to be towards the east or towards the west, and about how high off the horizon. It's rocket science, but it ain't rocket science. When your wife goes on her first trip to Tibet, you start with the European birds and some other satellites that have software telemetry that you can download, telemetry you can download with software and report this software to the repeater owners. This is just cool stuff. Solar panel conditions, battery conditions. This is just put the coffee on endless brew and do this for 4 or 5 nights. But again, your significant other needs to be out of the area, unless he or she is a ham. But this is just cool, fun stuff. The Saudis have a bird. Okay, show of hands. You can relax though. But with a show of hands, how many have a HT battery that's lasted 19 years? 19. This satellite was launched in 2002. It's still working. Now, 2002, it wasn't lithium ion, wasn't lithium. It's got to be an ICAD chemistry. It's a little off frequency. It's a little finicky to get into, but it's still working. It's still doable with handheld radio at 4 or 5 watts. And it's been up there for 19 years working for us. SO50, Saudi Oscar 50, only a 250 milliwatts coming down. But when you hear it, when it's right over you, it's as quiet a background noise as your local repeater. AO27 died about 10 years ago, but then at Christmas time, 5 or 6 years ago, came back. We don't know why. And the gentleman who's running it, Chuck Wire, has reprogrammed it, and it will work now for the first 2 or 3 minutes of a North American pass. Why is it working? No idea. A cold solder joint couldn't have cured itself, but it's working. It's worked for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the North American pass. Have AO27 programmed. We have not had good luck with our last 2 Foxes, Fox AO91 and AO92. Please do not even attempt to work these unless they're being hit by sunlight. We have battery problems, we have power problems. It's just, these are not AL51s, but they are being worked. But again, please do not deplete the batteries and try and play with it at night, even though it's tempting. Only when you're getting sunburned should you be working 91 or 92. And Vanderbilt's AO109, the RadFX2 project, I don't know if it's because it was in darkness for so long without being charged as the launch was delayed, why it never got off the ground. But right now it's putting up just putting out just a few milliwatts. It would be nice if you have time and some high gain antenna just to try to monitor AO109 and report to the AMSAT page. I'll show you how to report your findings and what you hear. But a lot of learning happened, a lot of excitement happened, but just never materialized as what the Vanderbilt wanted it to be. So how do you do this? Minimum requirements. I'm still using the FT60, the one you saw me toss across the room. It is not a duplex radio. The Yaesus allow you, though, to program 2-meter transmit, 440 receive in one memory location. But again, you key the mic, you never hear the downlink. So, and although it's not required that you do true full duplex, it's just preferred. It lets you know if you're getting in the satellite or not. It lets you know if you're actually stepping on someone else or not. But you know, if it's during the week and it's not that crowded, like it's like crazy weekends, yeah, you can use a non-duplex radio and get it done. Improve your antenna, know where it's going to be with the software we'll talk about, and of course the knowledge. And are there any FT60 folks in the room? FT60? Yeah, it's Philip, 17-year-old radio. It's still the best feature set for an FM voice 2-meter 440 HT. For those who are looking for an HT, they're still available. They're still, it receives 108 to a gig. It receives AM air properly. It has the strongest belt clip of any amateur HT on the market. It's got a phenomenal battery situation, and you folks love this. Populate the optional FBA 25 battery tray with 6 AA's. You've got full transmit power available if you really need it. Do that to your VX6, you got 300 milliwatts for about 5 minutes. Do that to the FT70, I think it's 250 milliwatts for a few minutes. The FT60 is an easy manually programmed, large legible display, bulletproof, although my attorney says I can't say bulletproof in Zoom meetings because people might take me literally. It is a very rugged unit, and Philip will tell you that it is. When you program a split frequency in a Yaesu, the plus and the minus sign will show up in your display. That's on page 28-ish of your Yaesu manual. You want to improve your stock duck. We all know they're -3, -5, -9 dB gain. The Diamond SRH320 is very, very popular, but it's always 14 inches long. At half the, it's $50 too. At half the price and a better performer on 2 meters is the Smiley 270. Yes, it's a collapsible metal antenna on your delicate antenna connector. We'll talk about that in a second. It has a beefy spring. I don't know if you can see this one. It's got a beefy spring in the base. Watch this, watch this, watch this. Oh, I'm not damaging my radio. It's got a nice beefy spring in the base to protect your HT's antenna. And it's half the price, made right here in Southern California by htantennas.com, or you can get it in BNC, SMA male, SMA female from Ham Radio Outlet, hamradio.com. That's the wrong way. If you're going to be changing out antennas a lot, playing with satellites and different antennas, instead of wearing out your delicate SMA connector, how about wearing out a $10 adapter? Quality SMA connectors are only rated at 200 or 300 connect disconnects. And if you're getting a lesser import radio, that's not a $12 connector on your radio. So it's a much less, it's going to be rated at much fewer connect disconnects. So do something to protect your connector. Unfortunately, your HT. Unfortunately, though, that Yaesu CN3 on the left there, I think should be outlawed because it allows you to imagine putting heavy coax or heavy antenna on this and making a mistake, bending it or dropping it. That's metal. The arrow is pointing to metal contact, yanking right up against your antenna connector, and it's going to fail at your event. It's going to fail during your net. It's going to fail at some point in time. Yaesu will charge you $65 to cure that, to repair that. Compare that to something that gives you a little bit of cushion, some base to it to make some mistakes. That's the Gulios adapter, no longer available. A wonderful engineer out of Florida made those until he he retired. But Comet and Diamond have a couple HT connectors that have some cushion for you there. And Philip, it gets worse. Look at this. I've seen in the field N and PL down to SMA. Those just scare me. Now, if anybody had dinner right before the meeting, please be forewarned.
The following is not suited for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
Again, if you are faint of heart or just ate, please turn away. Brad, I don't know, Brad. I think there's set 1, 2, 3. I think there's an F connect. There's a cable TV. Somebody went to Radio Shack, bought one of everything. Don't do this to the hobby. Don't do this to your radio at 1/3 of a dB loss each. Don't let a reporter say, oh, is that why they call it amateur radio? No. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's jumper cables and adapters for you. There's the 2 little diamond adapters. Ask your fellow ham which one mates best to the top of your radio's case. There's a lot of different topography with the antenna connectors on top of your case, but find one that mates really well. When your wife goes on her second trip to Tibet for 6 weeks, you whip out your Motorola test equipment and you start testing HT antennas. This is a total waste of time. Don't do this. If you have a new excited ham who wants, I'm going to test HT antenna, don't let him or her do it. It is a total waste of time. As we all learned in adolescence, longer is better. And for us, for 2 meter 440, it's about 17 inches where we want to be. VHF, UHF, don't go testing HT antennas. It's a total waste of time. Oh, remember this ad campaign? Who's got an FT70 and doesn't like their battery life? Who has radios that they just don't like their battery life? I think you know where I'm going with this. I can double your battery life right now without buying a second FT70 battery or second battery. Turn your transmit power down to 2 watts and improve your antenna with one of those I recommended or some 17-inch antenna. If you're not, and the engineers will tell you, if you're not making it 2 watts line of sight, 2 meter 440, you're not going to make it 4 or 5. Right? Yeah, it's antenna theory hasn't changed. So there, I just doubled your battery life. You want to improve your battery life even more? Use a audio accessory, earpiece or headset. What's the first thing you'll do with the volume knob if you put an earpiece in your ear? You turn the volume down. What eats up your batteries? Key in the mic and loud audio. So Brad, I'm not going to charge you for that. That's a little extra, little gift there, Brad. Double your pleasure, double your fun with your HTs. Get perpendicular while you work with satellites. This is a bumper sticker I had on my truck until I realized I needed to respect my marriage more. But if you're out in the front yard and you key your mic, your transmitted signal is essentially going about 90 degrees off the top third of your antenna, hitting a friend across the street or your hilltop repeater. Well, most of our amateur satellites are not land-based. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Norm. So you need to get that perpendicular relationship made with the orbit of the satellite. So you will be turning and you'll be opening up your squelch all the way. It'll be noisy, but once you start hearing that slight dip in the background noise, then you'll start hearing voices 90 seconds later. You know you've captured the satellite. So think about get perpendicular. At the Santa Barbara Hamfest a couple of years ago, the young man on the left just got his amateur license the Friday before, and his first contact as an amateur radio operator was working a satellite with me at the fairgrounds. This is just a photo that just you know, when you get 95 years of age, you just get weepy over things like this. But it gets better, Brad. His dad and his grandfather were there, each working satellites for their first times. So this is, along with the picture of my wife, this is one I want to be buried with. This is just a cool photograph. If you're going to use a handheld antenna, the Arrow antenna is 3.5 pounds, no big deal, but it's front heavy. And it does not come with that hacksaw handle. It comes with a foam grip on the end of its mast. Well, your wrist at that angle, holding 3.5 pounds for 12 minutes, it puts some stress in there. So what I did was I made it all heavier, but counterbalanced it. Here's a little tray, just aluminum, right angle aluminum, wide enough to fit your handheld radio. Put it back on the back end of the boom. What we do on the back end of the Arrow does not affect the transmit or receive quality. And put the radio in there and counterbalance the whole thing. That is a Stanley hacksaw handle, and it got the job done. Because 15 years ago, you can see that, well, you can't miss it, but you can see the defect in my wrist. And I ran up to the Ventura County Medical Center, and they diagnosed that as arrow wrist syndrome. So don't be a victim of arrow wrist syndrome. Do something to protect yourself. Get ergonomic. Get ergonomic. Oh, there's the handle right there. The bottle of Tang is empty. I didn't. That's just an homage to our space race. We're working the ISS slow scan TV. The arrow as a handle on there. There's a battery pack, USB battery pack on the back of that, which adds even more weight to it. But it's counterbalanced. It feels much better. I don't know what the guy on the roof is doing. I guess taking pictures. And then Joe Walsh has been a friend of amateur radio for a long time. There it is, all put together. Use a charity bracelet to hold everything together. And it makes it just, because, we're working satellites out in the backyard. You need one hand to hold the radio, one hand to hold the antenna, one hand to hold the clipboard, one hand to hold the pencil, one hand to hold your satellite tracking program, whether on an iPad or a phone, another hand for the pina colada. At some point in time, you run out of hands. So here we've combined 2 or 3 things into one contraption to work with. And where are they? They aren't up there all the time, so you have to know where are they, when are they going to be above you. Here's your AMSAT team hard at work. I'm sorry, Brad, I just love this photo. It's so Cold War-ish. But anyway, with your slide rules, I know Norm's got a slide rule there. It's easy to derive your satellite passes. All you do is plug in the epoch time, element set, inclination, RI, node, eccentricity, arc of the perigee, mean anomaly, mean ocean, decay rate, epoch revolution, plug in the checksum. Don't forget the checksum, and then map this out on your equatorial graph paper. Got it? Cool. Oh, Brad's got his slide rule out. So did you all get that? The formula is very easy. Got it? Yeah, I know. Don't worry. Don't worry.
He has his abacus.
Oh, an abacus. Oh, we will be here all night.
He is
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you. Anybody still using a Palm device? You can admit it. This is a friendly group. Anybody still using a Palm device? The Trio 650? No. Okay. Darn. Okay. Well, PocketSat works for Palm. Older iPod Touches, older iOS phones, PocketSat 3 is a wonderful program for your satellite pass data. Any Droid folks? Droid folks? Yeah, there's some Droid folks in Conejo. Hamsat Droid. What is wrong with this pass, though, folks? What's wrong with this pass? There's a trivia question right there in front of you. Let's see, the guy in a Hawaiian shirt was talking sun synchronous. He was talking passes that go not east to west. This was while we were beta testing this program, this is a pass that'll never happen of these birds. It is now known as AMSAT Droid Free, and it gives you proper pass information now, north to south or south to north for these birds, and a little bit to your east or a little bit to your west. But AMSAT Droid Free in the Google Play Store doesn't cost much. It's free. There are no blackberries left. There's one blackberry left. It's in the Natural Museum of History. Gpredict. Oh, for you Linux folks, I have this running 24/7 on a 32-inch monitor to my right. Gpredict for Linux. You can port it to Mac. You can port it to Windows. A free program. It even controls some rotators when you get to working with rotators. A glorious program. I take this with me to shows. There it is. There it is. Running on a Raspberry 3B Plus. On a monitor. It's just a wonderful program. Gpredict for Linux. Gpredict for it'll run on a Raspberry Pi Zero. It'll run on a $10 computer. My go-to though, really right now for the Apple iPhone is GoSat Watch. GoSat Watch, all one word in the Apple Store. It's not cheap. It's $10. Written by a Canadian ham, good guy. Earlier this year, NASA changed the manner in which we get the orbital data for the ISS. Within 2 weeks, he had his program updated and on the App Store for us. That is a responsive author, also responsive to your email inquiries. So GoSat Watch is a wonderful program for your modern Apple phone. For PC folks, well, they're all PCs. For Windows folks, there's SAT PC 32 for your home station or on your laptop. SAT PC 32, a commercial program. You get a little bit of discount if you're an AMSAT member. Another program, Nova for Windows, used to be commercial. It is now freeware. There's a code on my website and all over the place to use Nova for Windows. Any Mac folks? Mac folks? Ah, cool. I apologize for that. Look at that really low-res GIF I use for Windows. And Clint must have a Mac. Look at that gorgeous MacDoppler Pro screenshot. MacDoppler Pro, another commercial program. You also get $315 off on it if you're a member of AMSAT. And it's that time. It is our homage to Mr. Trebek. Final Jeopardy. Who has the Final Jeopardy question? Who? I have to play that entire 30 seconds. That's my licensing agreement with Sony. Tyler, do you know what that?
Anton,
Oh, Anton, I'm sorry, Anton. What is the your Final Jeopardy question,
in
please?
the form of a question.
Anybody? Anybody have the Final Jeopardy answer this evening?
Yeah, who is Johannes Kepler?
Oh my God! He even formed it in a question. You are absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Who
correct.
was? He's dead.
Johnny Kepler? Yes, indeed. The story behind this is I have never known Final Jeopardy before nor after. It was a beautiful summer night. The window was open in the room. My wife was 10 miles away down in Norco at a meeting, and she heard me squeal in delight when I screamed out, "I know Final Jeopardy." I haven't known one since. This mathematical, just think of the Keplerian elements, Johnny Kepler, as a mathematical statement of the orbit of satellite. It's no big deal, but at 1 o'clock this morning, I have a private session in Zoom. We will decode these. So if you want to stay up at 1 o'clock, we'll do a private little Zoom session and decode Keplerian elements. And yes, that is how geeky I am. Sony Entertainment Network, thank you very much for letting me use that 30-second clip, because if I don't thank them, they have really aggressive attorneys. Free information online for you. And as you start working the satellites, use two sources for your pass info. The errors I have made and anyone can make is putting two very important pieces of data, your location and the exact time of day, or make sure you're in the right time zone. Either one of those pieces of information wrong, and you're not going to get your satellites pass. So use two sources. Here's some free stuff for you: heavensabove.com, heavens-above.com, n2yo.com, and good old AMSAT.org. N2IO wrote a little widget for my website. You can see where the popular satellites are right now live to match up with what you're seeing on your machines. AMSAT.org, not graphic, not beautiful, just a page of numbers. You put in the satellite you want to see, where you are on the planet, and ask for the next 20 passes or 30 passes, and it just gives you a chart of numbers. What you're looking for is the maximum elevation, and then go to the time of day and then where it's going to be, north to south or south to north. If you're using AMSAT's data, though, please remember to back out for Greenwich Mean Time. There's information's all on GMT/UTC time. I used to take my phone to bed with me and get calls 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It's not there. It's not there. Well, are you using AMSAT's data? Yeah, you told me to. Did you back out for UTC? Click. So anyway, AMSAT.org. Make sure you back out for, there's the little widget there that you can see where the popular satellites are right now. That's my website, worksat.com, work-sat.com. So general procedures, we're almost through with part 1, Brad, almost through. Listen, monitor the downlink, open your squelch up all the way. And this sounds weird, and SO50 is the exception, but this sounds weird. If you don't hear it, don't key your mic. That sounds weird. Don't worry. On the East Coast and the West Coast, I never use absolutes, but there's always going to be someone for you on the FM satellites. But if Chuck is sending up AO27 commands or housekeeping chores, or if someone's trying to work on the housekeeping units of 91 or 92, we're just going to bump into them. So wait, someone from AMSAT or someone in the quote in the know is going to be on there, and you'll hear them chatting either in Mexico or in Canada. Then go ahead and work it. SO50 is the exception. SO50, without anybody really sending any commands to it, is an exception. We'll go into that in a second. How far can you go with this? Well, here's, we're both using FT60s, each at 4 watts, each with arrow antennas. This is by no means a record. It's not something I can go out and duplicate every night. But doing 2,000 miles, when that see the footprint on the upper right? That footprint says I was only going to go one state to the east. Yeah, a couple thousand miles. You can, if that passes to the west, you might hit Hawaii. Yeah, so the footprint, look for the elevation mostly. in your tracking programs. If it's 10, 15, 20 degrees or higher, you're going to be working at several hundred miles away. Last trivia question this evening. What is the grid square at the sheriff station? Who knows the grid square over at the sheriff station?
6 digits or 4.
That's your meeting room, isn't it? That's the building? Someone said Delta Mike 04. Anybody know the suffix by any chance? You are right at the edge there. You are correct. It's Delta Mike 04, November Foxtrot. And as you work the satellites, please use I know you already do, use the internationally accepted phonetics. There are a lot of folks out there going after grid squares, going after certificates, going after contests and stuff. On the weekends, this is not chit chat time. It's just going to be, you sound great, bye. You're going to identify yourself, know your grid square, and it's going to be a quickie. If it's a scouting event or weekends with AMSAT contests or just AMSAT operators going after their certificates, it's going to be a very quick conversation. But Thursday night, 11 o'clock at night or 9:30 or early in the morning, especially with the ISS crossband repeater. There was an ISS crossband repeater pass last night in Europe. There's only one guy on the whole pass in France. It's like, whoa. We'll have a little bit more traffic than that in Southern California. We already talked about that. What I use for equipment, I do have the Kenwood THD-72. I just don't take it with me to shows. I want people to know you can do it with a more modestly priced radio. I'll take the tape measure beam or the air. I took the elk out last time, and something to protect your HT's antennas. For SO50, let's say you are an insomniac, you've been working it for a few months, and you know it's over the house at 2 o'clock in the morning. You go out in the back, key the mic, no one comes back to you. Well, the satellite requires a 67.0 tone on transmit. Leave open tone for receive all the time, but on transmit, if it's not on, shoot it a 74.4 for a couple seconds and turn on its 10-minute timer. You become the control operator of a satellite. Is that cool? You think I wasn't scared crudless the first time I did that? Oh my God, it's going to crash in my koi pond. The AMSAT handcuffs are going to be tight. But no, someone else just might not know that it might not be on for its 10-minute timer. So shoot it at 74.4 to turn it on those off-peak hours, and then go back to 67, and you'll probably find somebody. Again, AO91 and AO92, you notice the receive frequency stays the same because it's on 2 meters, but the 440 side on transmit is going to change for Doppler. And again, 91 and 92, no matter how tempted you might be, it's going right over your house. Don't, if it's nighttime, please, only when it's being hit by the sun. So you have gone to my website, you know when it's going to be over you, you know where it's going to be in the sky, you know your grid square, your radio is programmed. Wait for a break in the action, key a mic and do it. Use your own call sign, please, but I would wait for a break in the action. Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra, Delta Mike 04. And before I do the handheld thing, are there any AMSAT members in the room? Any AMSAT members here this evening? Some AMSAT folks get irritated with me by saying handheld or saying demo, but you know it's only a third of a second of airtime. I would not say K6LCS, Delta Mike 04 at Conejo Valley Amateur Radio Club's Sheriff Station and beautiful. But no, if you say handheld or demo, it's going to let, hopefully, some of the diehards back off and let you get in there with low power. I just took a poll. It was just with the recent election we had. 99.4% of amateur radio satellite operators are just fine people. We might be making mistakes. We might accidentally step on you, but maliciousness and nonsense, it just isn't out there. Although it sure has the opportunity to be there with our population and getting those very, very inexpensive radios out in the market. But saying handheld or demo is going to let that guy in Texas with a 1 million watts, brown liquor and a foot switch back off and let you get in there and get a contact made. So saying handheld or demo, just go for it. Just do it. That's interesting. I broke my computer. When you work satellites, there's a page at AMSAT where you can put your data in whether you heard it or not. Sounds silly, but this information, Siri, I need that last page blown up a little bit, please. Thank you, Siri. This page is data you and I put in that not only lets fellow hams know what is working, but lets the control operators know. If look at that top arrow, there's 92 in daylight only. It's blue all the way across, most of it. Blue is good. It means it was working. Let's drop down to the middle of the page, SO50. That's just blue all the way across. The orange one means there's mixed signals. Somebody might not have heard it. Someone heard it, but it's mostly blue. AO91 in sunlight only, all blue all the way across. The ISS crossband repeater, oh, it was red there. Well, what happened in that red section? An extravehicular activity. When there are missions heading towards the ISS, leaving the ISS, or when they go outside, all amateur gear is turned off. They just don't really like sparks and explosions and things like that. So they will turn our gear off and hopefully turn it back on. And they're religiously, they are very, very good at that. All the way at the bottom, the last arrow, ISS packet system, not up this week because packet from us and voice FM repeater won't be on the same won't be on at the same time. It's the same radio. So this data is easy to put in. There's a drop-down list of the satellites. You say whether it was uplink and downlink was active. It reverts. Actually, it doesn't revert. It shows you the last 15-minute segment of time. You put your, who's that? W6VO is working SO50. Well, that's interesting. And put this info, and this lets other hams know what was going on. The ISS beautiful QSL card, you qualify for that for just hearing packet. You don't have to work a satellite. You don't have to work the repeater. You don't need to work an astronaut. Just hearing it qualifies you to get this gorgeous QSL card. Then when you work at packet or work at voice or slow scan TV, those are all the modes in the back of the card. You can apply for more cards. But on my website, there's all the address. The address for the gentleman is Bruce. Christie's his wife, Hunter, Bruce Hunter, here in Victorville, California, is the ARISS QSL card manager. The directions and self-addressed stamped envelope and everything, and slip $1 in there, slip $1 in there for Bruce. He's been very, very busy and he's doing a lot of work for us. But you just by hearing it, you just watch it go over and hear it on packet, you can get this gorgeous QSL card on your wall. Brad, that's the end of part one. Anybody have any questions? I could try to answer. We got a question? Go ahead.
Yes, just a second. Here.
Is Molniya called a highly elliptical orbit? Pat, I don't know the exact answer to that question, Pat. Is the Molniya orbit a highly elliptical orbit? I just don't know the definition of highly. Brad, do you know what the definition of highly elliptical is or norm in the satellite world? I don't know what that means.
When you were talking about Heo, Leo, and Geo.
Okay, Pat, I'll find out for you. Is your call sign aj6mj@arrl.net? Is that your email address? Okay, if not, Brad, I'll email you the address to that. I'll find out the answer to that. That's a great question. I'm embarrassed I don't know that. All right, anybody have anything else for me? I can try to answer.
Question about Oscar 13?
Oh, please. That's before my time. You tell me about Oscar 13.
Well, I loved it, and I could work it in the morning, and I go to work and do my lunch, come back, and I could work it as it was descending in the afternoon. I was wondering if you knew what power level it worked at, and also how eccentric that was. I think there were some times that we could have possibly a 15-hour pass over the north, because it hung over the northern hemisphere. So just wondering what you had to add for that.
I apologize. I did not work Oscar 13. I don't know much about it at all. These last 15 years have been getting folks started with the easy ones and then go. I've only done a few sideband birds over the last 15 years. I'm still finding folks that are excited with, and I'm still excited by, working the crossband repeaters on these FM birds. So Oscar 13, I apologize, not familiar with it. All the information on it, though, is available for you at amsat.org as far as the power and what frequencies for all I have a whole list of other birds here coming. More about the ISS, just for you to know, there's our 2-meter 440 antenna on the Columbia module. There are 3 antennas on the Russian module. Go to ARISS's page to find the status of the equipment. And right there, it's telling you that the 710G is indeed crossband repeater mode right now. It'll go to packet probably late September, probably. So that's the best site for information, is the folks that are controlling it. There's the ISS frequencies. You don't need to write these down. This is all on the website. The FM voice frequencies, those weird split 2-meter pairs, they're up top. Program them both. Yes, they're supposed to be using region 2-3, but what if the astronaut, if she or she just flipped the wrong knob and went to the wrong region, and you found out the next day they're on the wrong regions repeater, wrong regions pair. Program them both. Program them both. FM slow scan TV is on 145.800. Receiving slow scan TV from the ISS can be as simple as holding your smartphone up to your speaker of your radio. No cabling. Program's called from Black Cat Systems. It's a $3 app, and hear and decode those glorious 2-minute transmitted signals. It can be that simple. No esoteric cabling, no sound cards, no recording it. You can do it, be as simple as a little better antenna and just holding your smartphone up to your either your Android or your Apple phone. The crossband repeater is there. The uplink is on 145.99, 145.99. It requires a 67.0 tone. Leave receive on all these satellites. Leave receive open tone. And Brad, that's all I have. What can I try to answer for? I could not have been all that encompassing.
Oh, that was great, Clint. Really appreciated that. Are there any final questions? Raise your hand. Oh, Victor.
Victor, good day.
Hi, Clint. I was a little bit late for the meeting, but I have a question regarding the FM capture effect of all repeater or receivers. So does it mean that if I have a higher power and more accurate frequency, I have a better chance of capturing a crossband repeater on the uplink?
No, use more than 7 to 10 watts, you're going to just wipe everything out. It's just timing mostly for these, especially the ISS crossband repeater. High power is not going to be a gain. Poor choice of words for you. 5 to 7 watts into a gain antenna is all you really need for SO50. Now 91 and 92 with their weakened systems, you might want to up it a little bit, but no, capturing these are just single channel, it's just a crossband repeater, one freak in, one frequency out. So it's just going to be more of a matter of timing than power. Did I answer your question?
Maybe in a way, yeah. Because I used to use only a handheld 5 watt TH74 Kenwood, but then during the field day, I swapped to a ICOM, which have 50 watt power going up. So I couldn't tell the difference, but I think it's a higher power was working, but I cannot be sure yet.
Okay, you'll make it, you'll do it, but it's very much overkill. When you know, I don't know if you want, I'll start the presentation all over again, because you can see at the beginning I worked the ISS when it was 465 miles downrange with 2 watts out of my FT60 and a little tape measure, $15 tape measure beam. So it's, you can do it with that. It's more timing than power for the FM crossband repeater satellites, I think is the bottom line.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Who else has a question I could try to answer?
All right, any other questions? Wave your hands frantically and
Question from WKW.
Doug, good evening.
Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, just Oscar 13 was a linear transponder. Are they all pretty much in low Earth orbit and doing FM, or are there still linear transponder things going on?
There's 4 more pages of slides. If you go to AMSAT.org, you'll see digital birds, you'll see transponder birds, you'll see Morse code. There's 30 satellites up there for us to work. There's only 4 or 5 FM voice, the quote easy birds, which is what I'm trying to plant the seed. But yes, there are linear birds for you and sideband birds for you. You're going to need 2 radios. Whether or not they're going to be in the upper or lower, and whether it's inverting or not, you have to watch other operators on when some satellites flip their modes. Sometimes the mid pass, sometimes high power will flip a mode. So they're a little more finicky to work, and not the easy sats that we're that I like to talk about, but definitely up there for you. And because they're a little bit more finicky or to work, you'll usually less traffic. You'll usually have more of a conversation and more of a conversation with another operator than just a quickie grid square exchange and your signal sounds good.
I'm sorry that my KLM antennas have long since bit the dust, but I still have the preamps and the funny Yaesu rotors. So yeah, okay, I've got some work to do in the future.
I went to the Pacificon one time, and there was a gentleman next to me with an arrow antenna working FM satellites with preamps. And it's like, okay, he's a fellow AMSAT person. We respect each other. Why? There's 7 to 9 dB gain in these things, and you can definitely work it. So, but for your sideband birds and for you might need preamps. The good old M squared egg beaters, wonderful antennas, great for 2-meter horizon to horizon reception with that ground plane kit. But man, my $15 tape measure beam just blows it away as far as working 2-meter 440 FM voice on the low Earth orbiting on the LEOs.
Brad, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Bob.
You talked about that young lady who created I don't know if she's the one that did it, but you talked about a box that had a motion sensor on it. What is the purpose of motion sensor on one of those things?
There were a couple students' experiments that just measured when someone entered the room, entered that portion of the ISS, and tracked as that person went. And it's all learning, it's all programming, it's all data that gets sent back down to the school or to the institution. So that's what the motion sensor is being used for. I'm not sure what they would use the humidity sensor for in space, but go to Raspberry Pi, I forgot the name of the website now. Hams in Space and the Raspberry Pi projects. The Sense Hat is used for just the scientists or the astronauts on board to see what is happening with the data. I don't know if they're using the joystick for anything up there or not. Barometric pressure, there's an interesting question about barometric pressure. They do reposition the ISS a couple times a month due to atmospheric drag. So that elevation change, that's built into the Raspberry Pi 3B plus. And that Sense Hat was built for this program, for the kids' space program. So and there's again those 2 new Pis are going up with that very expensive, wonderful camera too. That lens going up there too on the next pair of Pis. And then our Pi, the ARISS Pi, is one of the pieces of the 10-part comms project from ARISS, and that's going to be something you and I are going to be able to work through at some level when that gets on board and commissioned. Cool things are coming up.
All right. Any other questions? I'm looking around. I don't see any. Clint, thank you so much once again for such a great presentation. Shall I say entertaining? You did your homework, you prepared, and it was a great presentation.
You're number 120. You're number 126. I've done this 125 times before, and I don't know if you can tell, but it still intrigues me. It still excites me. Your club and your history there and what you're doing in your region. I definitely wanted to talk to you again. So I will see you in 11 years again, and we'll be talking with the geosynchronous satellite in 11 years.
All right, great. Thanks again.
Brad and group, thank you very much for sitting through that. Thanks for the courtesy laughs. I appreciate it.
Yep, they're all trained. Thanks again. And so next month, October 21st,